Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Ashley, and today I am joined by coach, creator, writer, dreamer, doer, Jonathan Perera. Jonathan is a visionary who has turned his creative passions into a reality and is on a mission to help others overcome their own barriers and live the lives that they were meant to live. He has traveled over 20,000 miles, planted over 2,300 trees, and coached over 240 people. So we are in for some good stories and encouragement here. So, with that, Jonathan, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. That's a heck of an intro. I certainly hope I live up to the hype.
Well, no, it's amazing to connect. I got to give a shout out to my cousin Allie, who initially connected us and who has gifted me this hoodie. And I told you a second ago, it's getting into into the 80s here in Florida, but excited to represent. And these are two of my very favorite words. So we are off to a good start, and it's really awesome to share this space with you.
Thank you. Yeah, honored to be here and see you repping the hoodie. I mean, I've got the same language here on my wrist, so
So, to kick this conversation off, I saw a video where you shared a bit about your journey and you were quoted saying, I loved my bus driver and I wanted to be a bus driver when I grow up. So, you are calling in from your home on a bus, transformed. So, take us back to the beginning of this aspiration that you had to where you are now.
yeah. Well, the video you're referencing, it was a tour that I did of my home, which, believe it or not, behind me, this is a bus. And I told a story of how I had first called my parents and told them, like, yeah, I'm buying a school bus and I'm going to turn it into an off-grid home on wheels, and like that's the plan. Which to my parents at the time, that's hardly a plan. That's a delusion. But down the road, my mom had remembered that as a kid, like a kindergartner or a first grader, you're doing that activity in class where they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? You're filling out a worksheet, drawing a picture, whatever. And at that age, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew that I loved my bus driver. So I said that I wanted to be a bus driver, drew a picture of a bus and a bunch of stick figure kids in the seats. Um, Obviously, that was a forgotten activity and thing that I did as a grade school kid. Um, and now, full circle in my third decade of life, I am living in a school bus. I am a bus driver, although not how I imagined as a 5 or 6 year old. Um, but that's kind of where I guess that started. But the real, I guess, beginning of this story and the vision of living this way, it kind of happened on accident. So I was a college student. This is 2015, so like 10 years ago now, and I'm in between classes, like watching a snippet of some show on HGTV about tiny homes, and there was this young couple living in a bus. And it was a modest conversion. They're sitting on a futon, but the fact that they had the freedom to go wherever they wanted to go and say yes to all of these opportunities got me excited. But it was just a passing moment between classes, a show I was watching, and I kind of just went on with my day. But I kept coming back to that thought over and over again. And for the next 4 or 5 years, I just couldn't let go of it. I was obsessed with it. I would draw buses and write about like the features and functions of like my hypothetical bus home. And that obsession eventually turned into something where I decided I'm either going to die thinking about this or I'm going to do something about it. But between that kind of initial seed being planted and me taking the leap, I actually had like a dream crushed that pushed me in the direction of like this other dream that I had.
What was this dream?
So I went to school for film and multimedia, and I had decided pretty early on in my college career, like I'm moving to Los Angeles and I'm gonna make it big in whatever capacity that looked like. I didn't necessarily want to be like a filmmaker or like a director of photography or anything like that, but I did move to Los Angeles fall of 2016, and I was working for Snapchat, and I was on like this 6 month internship creative contract type role. At the end of the contract, they offered me a full-time position, but I was just incredibly underwhelmed with the offer that they gave. And in an attempt to negotiate, I was basically told, listen, there's a line out the door for people who want to work here. We have enjoyed having you around, but somebody will take what we're offering. Um, so yeah, dream crushed. But at the time, I was also like working remotely on this like custom apparel hustle that I had, and I figured like, okay, I'm not gonna take this job. I'm gonna leave and have the snowboard season of my life and like figure out what I want to do next. And I left Los Angeles in December, and I didn't really stop moving for the next 3 months. And I snowboarded a bunch of places. I saw all of my people, and I was working remotely again from that like t-shirt hustle that I had. And I realized like, okay, there is a viable future with this Wi-Fi money and this opportunity to basically keep traveling and do these things I see people on the internet doing. And that bus obsession really came to the forefront then. It's like, okay, I'm going to start working in the direction of this. Um, I don't know what the next step on that staircase looks like or how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to try. And yeah, I guess that's really the origin story. There's plenty of pieces that happened between then and now.
Yeah, and I want to dig into that a little bit more, but one thing I just want to point out and that I really admire is that when you said you had this dream and going out there and you were working for Snapchat, which like to their point, there's people out the door wanting to work here,
Hmm.
right? But you knew your worth and didn't just accept something that just because it was, right in front of you. And I think that's really admirable too, to be able to say no to something in that way.
I appreciate that. And I think there was a part of me that felt that way at the time, but there was also a part of me that's like, I'm not going to go house poor trying to
Sure.
live in Venice Beach and work for Snapchat because as much as I want to do this, there's a lot of other spokes on the wheel of life than just the thing that I do for work. And as time went on, I came to appreciate that decision even more because I wanted to craft the lifestyle that I wanted to live and find work and a career path that supported it and not the other way around. Because I watched, especially at that stage of my life where me and all my peers were graduating college, people were jumping into these jobs and moving these places. And before too long, realizing like, I just am here for this job. I'm not here for myself. I'm not here for my people. I'm not here for my life. I'm here for a paycheck. And I think more and more people are coming to that realization on their own. I think COVID played a large part in that paradigm shift. But I'm thankful I was a few years ahead of that curve and realizing like this thing that I worked towards arguably my whole life and that I wanted was not what I thought it was going to be.
But I resonate with that a lot of levels, right? And just think like, hey, you have this vision and this plan for something, and then it doesn't go that way, or not what you thought that it would be, but you can still keep going. I mean, it's a lot of my own personal journey, which is why I was so excited to connect with you because just that whole concept, right, of things don't go as we plan, and that's how it builds this endurance within us to keep going and to keep
Mhm.
exploring and to keep seeking out and learning more about ourselves and others in this whole process. So I really appreciate that. So you had mentioned that there was a lot in between that had happened, right, until you got to this point where you are now. So when was it that you actually went through and said, hey, okay, I'm going to purchase this bus and this is going to be.
Hmm. Well, I guess when I left Los Angeles, the choosing an alternative path forward was like very present for me. It's like, what am I going to do now? I thought I was going to be here and stay in LA, get this job, and just keep unfolding that path. But when I was traveling, I was working from my computer and I was snowboarding and like really living a lifestyle that felt more true to me. That's when I was like, okay, I think there's a future here with this bus. How do I get there? I don't know, but I'm going to work with what's in front of me. That job I was talking about, I was a college student, like very involved in student organizations, and this custom apparel company that serves the college market had reached out to me asking if I wanted to be a campus manager, which is essentially an on-campus sales ambassador. And I said, sure. I mean, the job kind of fell into my lap. I was already ordering shirts for a bunch of organizations, and it evolved into this like $250,000 business that I had started and been running on my campus. By the time I had graduated, I moved to Los Angeles. I was doing the Snapchat thing. I still had some loyal customers, so it was like a side hustle to me at that point. But once the thing with Snapchat fell apart and I was kind of like drifting, for lack of a better word, just like trying to snowboard and see my people, I remembered that the winter sales conference was coming up for University Tees, that company I was working for. And I was like, okay, I might be like a washed up fifth year, but I'm going to go to this conference and see what's waiting for me there. And they had previously mentioned a potential job offer for me, but I turned it down because I was going to go to Snapchat, and like that was the path. Um, go to the conference. They offer me the job again, and I take the job with the caveat like I would love to work here and continue building what I'm building and teach students to do what I have done, but I want to leave. I want to accept this job with the opportunity to eventually work remotely, because I've been working remotely for them already, although the role was going to change. And they said yes, obviously with their own stipulations, like I had to hit my sales metrics and we had to formulate a plan. So I moved to Cleveland. I take this job full time, and I essentially become a sales and marketing coach. So this is also where like the coaching part came to start. Um, and I was responsible for recruiting, training, and empowering a rotating group of 50 college students at a time.
Oh, wow.
Um, in that first year, we did exceptionally well, but I also had my blinders on. It's like I have the opportunity to earn my remote future with this company and take a leap into bus life. So the team crushed it during the first year. And in the second year, we spent the whole first semester basically planning a test run, where I was going to visit, I think, 8 of my 12 campuses in one go. So, like, 5,000-mile road trip, snowboarding every weekend in between, and still empowering my team to do the best business that they've ever done. I'm meeting with customers and administrators on campus in person and like experiencing the slice of life that we're selling to. That trip went off without a hitch. It went amazing. It was probably one of the best 6 to 8 weeks of sales my team had ever had. And at the end of the trip, I had gotten the green light to basically go remote full time. So now I'm back in Los Angeles because that's just like the route that I had planned. I sold my car in Los Angeles. I flew back to Cleveland, and the money I made selling the car was my deposit on my schoolie build. And that was in February of 2019.
I just learned the other day what a schoolie meant.
Yeah,
So,
and that's like the first time I had heard it was on that show, that HGTV show. It's like, yeah,
yeah.
this is a camper, but it was a school bus. It's our schoolie. And then I went down the rabbit hole of like, what is a schoolie? And that's how I ultimately connected with schoolie.com, Luke, and their whole team that helped me bring the bus to life.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was like, how do I not know this? Like, what is that? I've heard the term, you know? Okay, so then you put the deposit down, and that was the beginning of getting this bus. Did you have an idea of, a certain bus?
I had ideas. I mean, I think like anybody who has this grand vision, whether it's for a job or a project or a home, like you have ideas. Like I had a Pinterest board, I
Bus,
had
your bus
drawing.
Pinterest board?
Yes, I had a Pinterest board with like different I guess boards within it for each room. I had like drawings and sketches for like the interior layout, and all of that was based on like videos I'd seen, pictures and stuff I had collected online, basically doing my own research and hearing from people who have done it themselves and things they would have done differently. I mean, I truly was like obsessed over it for like 4 years. So when it came time to pull the trigger, there was plenty of parts of me that felt not ready, or like you feel that fear bubbling up. But I knew like there's nobody who's more prepared than I am because I spent 4 years without letting it go. Um, so yeah, I put the deposit down in February, and then I basically spent February to September selling and minimizing the majority of my belongings. I leave Cleveland September of 2019. I move back home for a few months, and I basically make plans to move to North Carolina where the bus build was going to be taking place. To your exact question, I knew I wanted a full size bus, or at least close to a full size bus. Because I had seen plenty of people who have amazing like van conversions and short buses and things like that. But the limiting factor for them, at least what I perceived, is when it was inclement weather outside or it was cold. Because if you're, I mean, for example, I was living in Coos Bay on the coast of Oregon from August to December of this year. And as fall turned to winter, it's just wet there. It's raining all the time. And I was working and like spending time outside of the bus, but on the days I wasn't, if I had no plans to go outside, I would spend the whole day in here. Am I going to feel cramped? Am I going to feel like I'm getting cabin fever? Is my dog going to be having a hard time? And having a full or full-ish size bus with a roof raise was going to be the game changer for me, and it certainly has been.
I was gonna say I saw that you raised the roof, which really I imagine just it feels like it opens up the space all the more.
Yeah. I mean, the center aisle of most school buses is about 6 feet, and I'm 6 feet. So even if I feel like I'm good in the middle, as soon as I lean over, I'm
Yeah.
hitting the ceiling. But there is a massive difference that comes with raising it. We raised it 20 inches, so almost 2 feet, and like it gave us room to also play with like some architectural features on the ceiling and have some fun there. And yeah, even people who've seen pictures of it, they step in it for the first time and they're like, this feels huge.
No, it's so cool. So after the bus was completed,
Mhm.
what was your whole plan in the sense of like where you're gonna post up at, or you're gonna go on the road?
Yeah. Well, I want to start by saying whatever plan I have or had completely changed when COVID hit. Because I bought the bus and started the build pre-COVID, and it was supposed to be like this 6 to 8 month project. It became a 2 year project very quickly. I mean, the entire world was slowing down. Why would this be any different? On top of that, like we waited almost a year for some materials to come in or costs to come down because of all the supply chain issues that happened. So whatever plan I had initially, it fell apart and was recreated at least 3 times over those next couple years. But once the build was done, I really only had like three goals or three bullet points to a plan. I wanted to have some sort of a going away event slash fundraiser where I could bring all of my people together who were supportive and involved in the bus build over the past couple years, fundraise my way west because that me paying for diesel fuel is essentially my rent. So any support that I could have doing that and also couple it with a good cause, it was going to get me excited and make me feel good and also rally people behind my mission. So that was plan one. It's like have some sort of a going away party slash fundraiser, make my way west, and spend a winter snowboarding in the mountains, and also coaching snowboarding. So that's exactly what happened. I finished the bus build summer of 2022. I brought it back to St. Louis, where my family's from, shortly after, and I moved in. And then that fall, I hosted a big event which I called Bus Voyage, which is essentially my home as a temporary art exhibit in a sculpture park in St. Louis. There was roughly 200 people that came out. We had food sponsors, beer sponsors, we had live music, and a whole fundraising campaign with like games, giveaways, raffles, and stuff called Dollars for Diesel. And essentially, for every $5 that was donated, a gallon of fuel was paid for at the time. I mean, prices are different now. But a gallon of fuel was paid for, and a tree was planted with the National Forest Foundation. So that's also when the tree planting campaign started. And the Dollars for Diesel program is still going on. I'm still, as you mentioned, like planting trees with the National Forest Foundation. Um, but that was step one. Step two was making my way west. And although so many of my other long stretches of driving have come with their share of breakdowns and speed bumps and issues, that first drive from, well, I guess it was really my second long drive, but from St. Louis to Breckenridge, Colorado, where I was parked for the season, I really had no issues. I mean, I stopped a couple times to avoid some weather, but like no mechanical issues, no issues with the bus. Like I made it where I was going uh, with relatively little stress. And then I spent the whole winter parked and living at 10,000 feet coaching snowboarding at Breckenridge. So that was the plan. That's what the plan became. Um, I don't really know what it would have been otherwise because it totally depended the time of year that the bus build finished. Um, but now to your question, like how do I figure out like where I'm going to go and how long I'm going to stay and stuff like that? I feel like I mean, I've been living in the bus now for almost 3 years. It's been about two and a half. Um, I've found what I would consider like my natural rhythm of like work and play and living this way. And that looks different for every other nomad and like transient person that I've met. But mine is like I like to find a spot to really like post up for 6 to 8 weeks. Like I want to be somewhere long enough to where I feel like I get to know the place, I get to know some people. I find my gym, my yoga studio, the coffee shops I like, the parks that I go hang out at or skateboard and like take my dog to. So that by the time I leave, if I were to come back, I'm driving around with no GPS. Like I know where I am. And then after those 6 to 8 weeks of being stationary, I get this itch to just like let it rip and say yes to a bunch of things, whether it's like seeing friends in transit to somewhere else, going to concerts or music festivals, finding like a national or a state park and like doing a bucket list hike. Like, and I'll do that for 4 to 6 weeks. And then after letting it rip for so long, you kind of feel the burnout coming on because living and traveling full time, and I do it in quotes because it looks different for everybody. It's hard. Like you have to solve for all of these things on a daily basis that you're not doing in an apartment or a house. Like when and where am I filling up my water? When and where am I emptying my gray tank and my wastewater? Am I going to be getting adequate sun for my solar panels to charge and like have power in my house? Is there services or a grocery store that I can stop by en route to this place, or am I going to be stuck in the middle of nowhere, like the Great Basin National Park or the Salt Flats in Utah, where there's just nothing for so long?
So how do you go through those kind of challenges that come up?
Well, I think in the beginning it was a lot harder than it is now. Like a lot of things, you build a tolerance to it. So I imagine, like as an endurance runner or an endurance athlete, like you hit so many walls along your event or your competition. And when I was making my way west, I made sure, like, okay, I'm topping off all my resources before I go. I'm being super aware of the towns I'm going through, the roads that I'm driving, and what resources I'll find along the way, what weather is coming up. But then you find yourself in situations where you didn't plan as good as you thought, or environmental factors change very quickly, or you have a breakdown and you're stuck on the side of the road for 2 nights. And you learn lessons when things happen the hard way. Whether we like to believe it or not, I think a lot of lessons are learned best the hard way. And I had a breakdown before where I was on the side of the road and I realized that very quickly, like, okay, now that the initial shock and just my heart rate has come down from that event, I'm actually fine. I'm off to the side of the road. It's not a terribly busy road, and I'm home. Like my bed is back there. Like I have my Starlink dish I could put up. I have internet. Like I'm not lost without a paddle, you know? Like I have enough. But I realized I didn't have a ton of food. So instead of like having real meals, I was snacking through the next 36 hours. And I was just not feeling great. I'm like, okay, well, this is why before I make another big drive ever again, I'm going to make sure I hit a grocery store just in case something happens. But also, it's nice to get where you're going and not have errands to run. So there's layers to it as well. But I was just going to say, I really think by making mistakes and having things go wrong and the plan just going awry, that's where you learn one, how to prepare better in the future, but two, how figure outable everything is and how capable you are of problem solving in the heat of the moment.
That's so good. I was just going to say that because when we go through these things and we learn these lessons, then it helps us for that next time. You're equipped, right? You're equipped for that thing. And so it's really translatable, I think, in that way. I wanted to transition a bit because I'm super curious about the work that you do with others and coaching.
Mhm.
And there's no doubt that you have impacted so many people. I mean, the video that you have uh, on your website, I had the opportunity to watch that, and there's nothing more powerful, I think, than when others share something about how you have affected them. So I want to learn more about some of the work that you're doing, with others and what inspired you to do that kind of work because that takes a lot of emotional energy as well.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm glad you felt moved by the video. I think as good of a marketing tool as that video has been for like the launch and the life of my business, it's also been a huge lifeline to me in moments where I don't necessarily feel so much like myself or I'm going through it. Because I think no matter how good we are at what we do or how impactful we are on the people around us, we have moments where we feel a little lost, a little like an imposter. But that that video has brought me back so many times, and I don't know if all of my friends, my peers, my clients, and the people who are featured in that video realize just how much they speak to me in their testimonies and their moments when I need it most. So yeah, that's probably one of the best videos I think I've ever made for that reason, among so many others. But in a nutshell, my coaching and my work, I aim to help people feel more like themselves and ultimately get more from their lives, their relationships, their business, and really their aspirations. And I think when we feel more like ourselves and we feel more present, all the other things come naturally, because that dreaming mind, it doesn't come on when you're stressed, when you're in this flight or this fight or flight situation, or when things aren't necessarily going your way. I think there's a certain scenario when like people thrive under pressure and then their back is against the wall and they figure it out. But generally speaking, like when you don't feel like yourself, you're not going to think like yourself. You're not going to move towards things that make you feel good. So, as a certified life coach and a snowboard coach, a youth mentor, and a business consultant, my goal is really just to help people get more of what they want out of their life. And that looks different for everybody. So, I'm not out here dishing advice and telling other people what to do, but more so giving them a sounding board, asking the right questions, and reminding them, like, you know exactly what you want to do. And when you have these moments of stillness and presence, those thoughts are loud. Are you listening? Are you hearing your own voice, and are you trusting it? So, yeah, there's some layers to that. I mean, the life coaching is obviously very different than the snowboard coaching, is very different than the youth mentorship and the business consulting. But really, the common denominator is people are trying to find their own voice again and rediscover who they want to be, whether it's somebody who's coming out of the military and trying to reacclimate to the world that they're not familiar with, or it's somebody leaving a relationship behind that's not for them and trying to figure out, who am I outside of this label as a wife and a mother? Who am I as a person, and what do I want? There's so many variables there, and I feel like every client has taught me something as well. But I really think that's the punchline. It's like, who am I under all of these labels and things that I've assigned myself or someone has given me, and what do I really want to feel like when I feel like myself?
I love that. I think that that question is so it's so relatable to so many of us. You know, it's a question that I've worked through, continue to work through, right, as a former athlete, and that whole identity piece, even just in the things that we're doing, right, and how quick we are to attach to certain labels, or we'll put labels on other people, or put ourselves in boxes, put other people in boxes. And there's so much more to discover about ourselves, learn about ourselves and others. And I love that kind of work, because you really find so much freedom in that when you can get through these, you know, you have these breakthrough moments and working alongside somebody that you trust, that is for you, that wants the best, that sees the best in you and wants the best for you and is helping you get there. It's such an incredibly valuable relationship. I'm grateful for that in my life, and it's really amazing to know that that's the, you know, the kind of work that you're doing, and the impact that you're having in other people's lives. And so I just give you all the kudos in that way for doing that work. It's inspiring to know that, yeah, you truly have a vision, have a passion, and go after it and are living it. And I think so many people crave that and want that, and you're an example of that. So
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. And I certainly noticed that in myself, but I think it's also important to point out that, like, while I've always, even since I was a kid, had like different interests and visions for like what I wanted to do versus what the popular kids were doing or whatever. Like, I feel like my vision didn't get really sharp and clear until I found my own version of like an emotional rock bottom where I felt so lost. And I want to say I had the opportunity to rebuild, because I did, but it almost came out of necessity too. Like, I knew what I wanted. I didn't necessarily know how to get there, but I also knew that nobody was coming to save me, and that if I didn't figure it out and piece it together by myself, then it wasn't going to happen. And I think that's something that a lot of people, they might feel the first half of that, but not the second half. They might feel stuck or lost or unsure, even though there's this thing that they've wanted to do that they've been putting off or has kind of eluded them for whatever reason. And I think it really comes down to a decision. Do you want to keep living the same day over and over and feel this way years from now? Or do you want to make a change, no matter how small, and let that snowball into this thing that you are dreaming of? Or maybe something completely different that comes along the way that really was meant to find you in pursuit of that other thing. That's how I feel about the coaching, consulting, like running my own business and living life on the road. I don't know if I would have discovered it and landed at this point had I not chased after that other dream and watched it fall apart.
Yeah, and that starts with the choice that we
Mhm.
all have the power to choose. And I never want to forget that. I think it's easy to forget that we have a choice because there's comfort in the familiarity, and just kind of, even if things aren't going well, you're like, okay, well, I'm here and I'm in this thing and I just got to keep doing this thing. And it's like, wait a second, remember that you actually have a choice in this. And to your
Mhm.
point about making a small step, it doesn't have to be like one day you're here and then the next day things don't happen overnight. I mean,
No.
think about your vision, and even just, when that initially first started, and just following, knowing, like going through that process of it, and then see, it coming to fruition, years later, and not the way that you thought that it would. And then here it is, and you're living out that dream. So, I think that's really, really good encouragement.
Thanks. And yeah, I think I'm sure you can relate to this in your own story, but you might have a vision or an idea of what you want, but nobody's going to know what the entire path there looks like, no matter how type A or good of a planner you are. You can't solve for the finish line and for the things that are going to happen in between that were unplanned for. But those tend to be the most beautiful, telling parts of the story. So, I mean, it's cliche to say, but like you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. All you have to do is, like you said, make the choice, take that first step, and decide that you're going to keep going no matter what you encounter along the way. And that's really where the premise comes from behind keep going. Like through my own uh, rebuilding from rock bottom and like my challenges with mental health, and also the decision that like I don't know what's going to happen, but I know what I want and I know it's out there waiting for me. I just have to move in that direction and keep going.
So good. I was gonna ask if you could just share, a little bit about what endurance means to you, what it means to keep going. And I think you just hit it right there, in your own story. But that's it, right? When those challenges do come, it's that thing that is within us that keeps us, when that vision is so strong, it
Mhm.
keeps you moving forward and through it, and not knowing all the details, right?
Yeah. And I think there's like, I mean, I don't know if this is something that's just in you or something that you develop, but I think there's a stubbornness about it, whether you're an endurance athlete or you're an endurance person pursuing this vision that you have. Like you have to be you have to be stubborn with your dreams. You have to be stubborn with your vision, but you need to be flexible in how you get there. Because like we talked about before, it's going to change and evolve, and like you don't know what it might morph into by the time you arrive. But really, when you arrive, like you've already, I don't want to say pushed the goalpost, but you've already thought of something else. And there's I think a double-edged sword there. Like I think especially in like the Western world, like our society pushes the goalpost and like we want more and more and more. And I think there's a beauty to that depending on what your pursuit is, because it's not about what you're pursuing, it's about the space between and the work that you're doing. Um,
It's good.
but I think also like taking a moment to pause and reflect and realize that you are living some version of your dreams that you once thought about. You have arrived somewhere. Um, and you mentioned like my writing and the journaling practice. I feel like that has been the biggest part of like keep going is really allowing me to recognize like yeah, I'm going to keep going, but I'm also going to stop and give myself credit and grace and gratitude for where I have arrived and the work I went through, and for lack of a better word, the shit that I went through along the way, um, because that was necessary as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love the point about keep going doesn't mean that you don't pause along the way, right? Because that's so important.
Hmm.
It's so important to pause and realize that you're actually in these moments that you had dreamed of before, these moments that you wrote about before, that you want to see come to life. Like you're in it on your way of getting to that next thing, that next thing, that next thing that we just are in this pursuit of, but we're actually arriving all along the way.
Yeah.
Um, that's a
That
really
might
great.
be the secret sauce too, to like somebody who lasts the test of time and plays the long game, is they recognize all of those pieces along the way where they did accomplish something. They did arrive, and even though there's more out there for them, they stop and appreciate the view that they've earned.
So good. I love that. Thank you so much for being here and joining in on this conversation, sharing a bit of your story and life on the road and your perspective and the work that you're doing. It's really encouraging and I know inspiring to a lot of people and including myself. And it's really cool for us to connect and share this space. So thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. It's been a gift to be here, and I took some time over the past couple of weeks to listen to some other episodes too, and I noticed like the common threads that find themselves in every episode, and I think that's a testament to what you're doing in your own story.